Hey everyone, and welcome back. This is the last build video for this. Honest, I swear. I'm going to wrap this project up, and then while I'm wrapping this up, I'll show you how I put together the heddle. I'm going to bring you back because there's a couple other things you need to do, especially with up here the rods. I'll bring you back for that, and I'm going to wrap this up, clear this all out, and see you here in a minute. Okay, if you remember back in part one, we were going over the template and the pattern to cut the frame out. We also had one of these to cut out. Actually, we had two of these cut out. So those are cut out of the same stock with the frame. And once they were cut, they're mounted on the sides of the frame themselves. The positioning of this is kind of tricky. When your heddle is in this groove here, it is in the down position. I'm sorry. When your heddle's in this groove, it's in the neutral, 0 position. When it's on this one here, it's in the up position. And when it's tucked under here, it's in the down. And that gives you your warp shed between the two so you can run your lines back and forth. Right now, these are just glued in place, clamped them in and waiting for the glue to dry. When this all dries up, I will pre-drill a couple holes here and here and screw it all together, make sure it's nice and tight. With that, my distance between the 2 points, get them both in here, between this point and that point there is 27.5 inches. So what I did was I cut from the same stock as the frame, two exactly square pieces, and these are 27.25, and they will fit just like that on the top. So this makes the top of my heddle. The other one makes the bottom of my heddle. And then from what I had left over from cutting these two, I had a couple extra pieces, and this will be the sides of the heddle. And the game plan is I'm going to cut a channel right down the middle of each one of these longer pieces. And that's where each individual little heddle warp sticks will go. That we drill a hole in their space over, but I'll show you that. Now from video one, parts, materials, things like that, I suggested we were going to use zip ties. I was going to use the zip ties for the heddle, but I don't think that's going to be strong enough or give me enough rigidity. So I picked up 1/4 inch MDF, which is this stuff, and I'm going to cut the actual up and down of the heddle. Okay, to figure out my height of the heddle, what I did was I took one of my heddle beams right here, and I put it in, this is the neutral position. So I know. And I took a piece of blue painter's tape across the top of this rod all the way across to the other rod. And the distance between here and here is my half distance for my total rod. Because the idea is when you put it in a down, it pulls half the strings down. When you put it up, it pulls the other half down. But in neutral, it should be right even with this one here. So to get that measurement, take my really old tape measure here. Try not to move around too much. And measure from there to there, and we have 1 inch. About 1.25 inches actually. Okay. So 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches times 2 is 2.5 inches. So each one of the pieces I cut from this need to be 2 inches long, but I'm going to make a 1/4 inch groove in this to hold it all in place. So I needed to make them 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches is 2.5. So I need to make them right at 3 inches. Okay. So we have our bottom heddle, bottom of the heddle, the top of the heddle. I went ahead and cut with my table saw a 1/4 inch groove in each one of them right down the middle. I know my distance because from here to here plus a 1/4 inch is 2 inches. So 2 inches times 2 is 4 inches. So I know the height, the length I needed for these is going to be 4 inches. So I went and cut 2 of these out. And that way you can kind of see how it's going to fit together. This is the end piece. It's a little wider than what I'm going to make the rest of them. And this will go into both channels and give that a nice solid something to glue onto. This top piece I'll cut, and then the top heddle will fit right on top, just like that. And then that square between them is going to be the heddle. So the next step is to cut out the rest of these, drill a hole in the middle of these, and that's where my every other thread will go through that hole. And then I start lining them up and gluing them down. I hope that didn't bore you too much. Okay, so now you know how I put together the heddle. One thing I'd recommend though is when you build it, make sure these are in a little bit and build your little lip out. As you see, what I had to do is I had to glue and screw another piece on the back here, so it caught that bottom lip before you go to the down position. That way it holds it. It's probably would have been a little bit easier and not quite so wanting to tip out like that if I had done it the other way, but it works. So I'm going to take this off of here because I am done with this color. I am pretty much, I've done a lot with this color. I made all kinds of little hand towels and things to put on the kitchen, the countertops when you're drying stuff, and I'm over this color. So it's time to move on. Let's go ahead and loosen this up, the sides, and I'm just literally just going to go through here and cut it off. Officially done with the red, the green, and the white. That out. That's done. There's my heddle. Now, if you notice on this, what I did was I did mark where the center was, and I marked out 6 inches and then 12 inches going from the center. And that gives me where I know my 2 feet is and where my exact center is on that one. That's just a personal preference. And I didn't show you too much when we did the video on it, but that's pretty much what it looked like when it was all done. These are all spaced about a 1/4 inch apiece, and the holes are all lined up on the side on the same. This was fun to put together. Not really, not really. For what else you're going to need to do is take this off. In case you're wondering about the parchment paper, that's just so that the weave doesn't start binding up. You want to gently take this off because remember, this isn't tied. Okay, so I'm just going to take this off, and now I can show you what the last step on this is for your build. So you remember your dowel rods you used for your locks, those little tiny ones here? I ended up getting 2 more of these, and down here at the bottom, I drill little holes into those. I drill a hole into my rod, and then I attached it with a loop to made it loose. Now I can do my warp through it. And originally I had tied these in with string, and the problem was the string was stretching out as I went along, and it was causing the weave to actually start doing some weird things. So I took that off and then went through and little hole, little zip tie, and then when you turn it, it's basically, well, it goes up right with it. And that way when you turn it, it locks it in place and you can weave. Do your thing. So that's the only other step you need to do is this little rod here. Puppy nose. And that's it. You do it here and you do it at the end. And that way when you're warping, you put your warp through in, you can tighten them down as you go along. So that's it for the build. Part 3. Not going to do another one. Whew, I hate build videos. The next thing for this will be I'm going to re-warp this with a totally different color. And now that I know I can make actual panels for fabric, I'm going to try and, for my winter project, to actually try to make a piece of clothing with it. So stay tuned for that. That should be fun. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button while you're down there because it helps the channel out. And stay tuned, that way you know when, if you're into the weaving or want to learn how to do that, I'll take you through the process of how I do it on my DIY Heddle Loom on this one. The only thing I did was I had an old desk sitting here, and I put this piece across and angled it so it sits flat on this shelf, and that way it's all nice and locked in for me. It's perfect height for working, and I can go back and forth with it that way. And as far as the warp sticks, this is the same material that I made the warp out of. Made the heddle out of. The same materials that I just cut it with a scroll saw for my loops, doubled it to make it thicker, sanded it down so it's nice and smooth, and that's what I wrap my yarn on. So, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the series. And until next time, be safe, be blessed, and I'll see you soon.